Good morning, dear students. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Thank you. So, welcome. Good morning. Today, we will start our discussion on network security. This will be the last topic of network security. Next class onwards, we'll discuss about network application protocols. Right. Okay. In this particular class, we'll be discussing about the most commonly used security mechanism. We call it as firewalls. So firewall, you see, firewall normally any organization will certainly have just to protect its data from external users or external employees of the organization. So just to protect from them, they will be using. Okay, they will be using. So that is what we see here with respect to firewalls. And firewall is one of the type of, I can say, it is one of the type of security measure. It's one of the a type of security measure. So certainly we can have. Certainly we can have, in most of the commonly used network issues. Right. So what is exactly firewall? Firewall is a system. Okay, actually, it's a protection system. Actually, you get firewalls of two types. One is software firewall, another one is hardware firewall. Hardware firewalls are, of course, so it is a set of computers. So hardware, physical computers that are generally working based on the protection rules that are being written inside that. Okay, inside the hardware. Same way, you have software firewalls. Software firewalls are those firewalls which are built based on software instructions. Okay, first let us see what is firewall. Firewall is a system that typically sits at some point of connectivity between the site and protects it to the rest of the network. So as you see, so this is a company site, company web, company network, and it is being protected by a firewall through external hackers or external, attackers, right? So it is usually implemented as an appliance in the sense an application or a part of a router. If it is used as an appliance, it is called software firewall. If you use it as a hardware component, so then we call it as no, it is a part of a router. If you are having it, you call it as a part of it is a part of router itself. You can certainly have firewall. So when you implement as a part of your router, then we call it as hardware, firewall. So hardware firewalls are not much popular, but what happens when you have large community to protect? For example, in college, so every day you are seeing a lot of people coming, a lot of students coming, a lot of faculty, various other peoples are coming, especially in such places, public places, railway station. Railway station is a public network provider. So in such cases, you cannot provide software, firewall. Instead of that, in the router itself, you write the instructions, which are the sites to be enabled, which are the sites to be blocked. So all those things, if you just enable it, so definitely that is added advantage. It's an advantage. That's how you can protect. So as an appliance, as a software component or a hardware component, it can be implemented. Although a personal firewall may be implemented on end user machine. Of course, you can also have your own personal firewall. Normally, all operating systems, especially Windows operating systems, will have built-in firewalls and predefined, you know, uh, predefined firewall security instructions are fed in. So you can alter, you can change, you can switch off the firewall. So all those things. Suppose whenever you are, if you are trying to access some harmful websites like a patch, if you want to find software patch or software key, do you know uh, piracy websites if you go, so those are all not legal, so automatically your firewall blocks. So those are all the things that are normally blocked, normally written in the operating system itself. So that is a personal firewall. Personal firewall also you can certainly have. And firewall based security depends on the firewall being only the connectivity. So every network traffic that is coming inside and going out of the computer or of the company's network, it has to go through that firewall. So there should be no way to bypass the firewall via gateways. So there is no chance. You cannot bypass firewalls. And even if you are using wireless connectivity, gateway connection, dial-up connection, all these connections has to be go through this firewall. It has to go through this firewall only. So firewall ultimately plays a very important uh, position where it is a security gate. It's a security gate between your company's network as well as your external internet, external network world. So that is one thing that you should understand. And of course, look at this particular diagram. So in this particular diagram, certainly you can see a group of networks are being, sending some information. It has to going through, it is passing through firewalls. Firewall has to take care of all the firewall rules. And if it is okay, only such data it is sending back, sending. For example, in an organization, you are working. Imagine you are working in an organization and a software organization, and it's a software that you have developed. So software whatever you have developed, you cannot send it to your friend, so because it's a part of the business, it's a part of business, so you cannot send it to your outside the organization. So such components like what is that you are sending out, what is that you are downloading it, everything will be tracked by this firewall. So firewall ultimately is the component that certainly checks all the inflow as well as outflow from the organization or from your home network. Okay, let us see what is that. So one way of thinking the firewall is that by default, it blocks the traffic unless the traffic is specifically allowed to pass through. Yes. Praveen, you have any question? Praveen Higde, you have raised the hand. Praveen, you have any question? Praveen, you have raised the hand.
No, sir. No, sir.
It's okay. It's okay. I thought since you have raised the hand, that means you are clicked, no? So I think you have any doubt or something. So if anybody has doubt, please stop me by raising the hand. There is an option here. You can raise the hand option. You can just click. So you can, certainly interact with me. Okay, right. So the entire traffic that you are sending, okay, receiving and sending, it has to go through the firewall. And what should be allowed, what should not be allowed, it is written as a rule inside the firewall, right? And of course, for example, it might be filter out incoming messages except those addresses to a particular set of IP addresses or particular TCP port numbers. For example, look at here. So you are having internal network. So particularly one particular computer is it is very secure. This particular computer is very secure. Nobody can send the data. Nobody can read the data. Only read the data, send the data from outside. Outside it is not permitted. Only within the network it is allowed. Only within the network it is allowed. Outside it is not allowed. So in such cases, in your filter, okay, in your router filter, it is in your firewall filter, you can specify what is the TCP port number and what is the IP address that is not allowed, that is allowed. So only thing that you have to write here is what is the thing that is allowed, and you have to write what are the things that are not allowed. If you say, some IP addresses, if you say some port numbers are not allowed, your firewall will not allow. It will not allow to send data, transmit the data. So that is one thing that you should understand. That one thing that you should understand here, right? Further, you can see firewall divides the entire network into two zones. One is more trusted zone. So your company partners, your clients, your uh, uh, kindly mute. I think somebody is ready for it. Yeah. Somebody's mic was unmuted and it was hearing all surrounding noise, so I muted. Okay, so I was talking about the how exactly firewall manages. Firewall considers the entire network into two components: trusted network and less trusted, more trusted network and less trusted network. So if any packet is coming, or if any communication is coming, message is coming from the trusted zone, then it will allow. If any low trusted zone, if the data is coming, then it has to be checked carefully, and it has to be allowed inside. For example, it is just like our airport scenario. Just imagine if a person is coming from, our friendly country, Israel, or our friendly country, USA, or our friendly country, some other country like, Sri Lanka or, Nepal. So there will not be much security check. If the same person is coming from Pakistan, the same person is coming from Afghanistan, if the same person is coming from China, the way of checking is totally different. Not only that, even in Americans they trust very much European countries. Okay, they don't trust most of the Asian countries. So, and it is just like that. So, less trusted and more trusted. If you are in less trusted zone, so you'll be checked very much. So that's how it will do the checking. And more trusted, as it will have some very minimal test, minimal scan, and it will send. So that is there. And observe very carefully. This is useful if you do not want external users to access particular host or service within your site, of course. You can put them into from more trusted to less trusted. So when you put less trusted, automatically some of the services are not given. If you put them into a more trusted group, so they are allowed to access most of the things. And much of the complexity arises when you want to allow different kinds of access to different external users. Suppose, for example, uh, for my colleagues, I'll give some access. My clients, I'll give some access, and general public, I'll give some access. So my website uh, and all other components, whatever it is there, services, web services are there. So all those services are not common to everybody. For my clients, little bit. For my colleagues in the sense, the employees, it is the this one is the privilege is different, and for general public, privilege is different. So by setting different access levels to the external users, ranging from general public to partners, and also the internal employees. So definitely an organization can have le- levels level separation with respect to firewall operations. So when you have different levels, if you fall under a particular level, so what happens? You will be allowed. If you are out of that particular level, so definitely what happens? There will be more restrictions, more security check will be done at firewall check. So it is just like that. And of course, firewall, for every firewall maintains a table. We call it as rule table. This is also called as rule table, which will have the IP address, the port number, source IP address, destination IP address, the protocol, the port numbers, and action, whether they are permitted or denied. If you say permitted, okay, they are allowed. They are allowed to take, any this one message they can send, they can receive the message. In case if it is denied, so they cannot. So normally that will be put in firewall filter. It is there in the firewall filter table. So firewall filter based on IP, there is internet protocol, TCP or UDP information, among all other things. They are configured with a table of addresses that characterize the packet they will send or they will not be allowed to send forward. In the organization, tomorrow when you go to your software companies for working, okay, they'll be giving username, password. So before you start today's job, you have to log in. You have to log in and you start working. And once you start working, okay, you cannot access to particular applications. Like I want YouTube, no access from your company laptop. No access of pen drive, your Gmail, your Google Drive. No, nothing is accessible, because there are chances that being an employee, you can leak some security information, highly secure information. So what they do, they choose some particular protocols. So for mail transfer protocol, it is SMTP. SMTP protocol is totally banned. So they will say SMTP is denied. Nothing, you cannot send any mails. Either you cannot read the mail, you cannot send the mail. So it is done. Only internal communication you can do. That too with the different protocols they'll use. So what happens, and not only that, you are allowed to access only particular computer in the your network, office network. So you can specify, okay, this particular person can access only this much. Beyond that, you cannot access. So it is generally based on the IP address. Based on the IP address, so who can access, who cannot access everything. So only 172.1.1.1 can send messages to 200.1.1.10. The message you can send is TCP message, that too with port number 80 is permitted. So very, very important. You observe here 200.1.1.10. This is the very important server. This is very important server. So for this server, nobody can send messages except one person. That is 170.1.1.1. This person can send the message. That too, what kind of message he can send? Only TCP packets he can send. That too with port number 80. You cannot send any other port number. With the other port number, it cannot be sent. So this is a rule that is being written inside your firewall. This is the rule that you have written inside the firewall, that you should understand. That you should understand, right? And so there is an example of filtering. Okay, for example, you take a filter might configure, the firewall may be configured to filter out, that is not forward all the packets that matches the following description. You can write like this. First, you can write inside your, firewall, you can certainly write like this. You can write like this. This is the IP address, and this is the port number. This is the IP address, and this is the port number. So IP address and port number. So with that IP address, this particular port number, you cannot, send or receive any messages. So it is not allowed. It's not allowed. So this is one way how exactly you can write, your rules inside your firewall configuration. Once you configure like this particular IP address with port number, no, they are not accessible. Next, of course, this pattern also, of course, you can say, you can use for all, you can certainly use star dot star. When you say star dot star, so what happens? All cannot, send messages to host, that is to the computer 128.7.6.5 in port number 80. Nobody can send. Nobody can send. So this is how. So this particular pattern, of course, the above pattern, this particular pattern says to discard all the packets from this port number on the host so and so address to port number 80 on this. So this is the source. This is the source. From this computer through this this port number, if any packets come to this particular computer in this port, so you discard. You can certainly tell. And in this case, star dot star means all computers with any port number, they cannot send message to 128.7.6.5, this particular message in port number 80. Nobody can send messages to 80. This is particularly only one particular computer, that too in one particular port number they cannot send. But here, since it is given star dot star, no, says filter out all the packet addresses to port number 80 on the machine 128.7.6.5, regardless of what source, host or port send the packets, whatever it may be the packet. No, don't accept. So it is just like that. you filter it out. So next, you have another type of protocol. We call it as less protocol and stateful protocol. First, let us see what is stateless protocol. Stateless firewalls. Stateless firewalls are designed to protect the network based on static information. Very, very important. Based on static information. Static means fixed information. Fixed information. Based on static information. Fixed. So imagine your network is working on DHCP. DHCP means what? Dynamic host configuration protocol. Dynamic host configuration protocol. What happens in this dynamic host configuration protocol? Last class we have discussed, last module. Every time when you connect, you get a new IP address. Every time, every device, for example, mobile connects to your Wi-Fi, your laptop connects to Wi-Fi, you get different IP address. These IP addresses and their communication is not at all static. You cannot make a particular system to, not to, come inside the network. That is what you call it as stateless. So if it is so stateless will work only if the network it can protect the network if the information, all the network resources are in static. But if it is dynamic, of course, stateless is not possible. Stateful firewalls certainly uses. So whereas stateful firewalls filter packets based on the full context of the given network connection. Stateless firewall filters the packets based on individual packets themselves. So context, if you are avoiding, if you are stopping the context based on the context, then it is a stateful protocol. Stateful firewall. For example, you are writing the exam. So during exam, you are not allowed to use any other, compute resources. You are allowed to use only calculator. You are allowed to use only the programming tool. Yesterday we tried, right? So that is, if you set like that, then it is a stateful firewall. So dynamically, student, apart from this, he can access anything. If he access anything other than this, so it has to stop. So that is stateful. And further, if you look at many client-server applications dynamically assign port numbers to the client. If the client inside a firewall initiates the access to external server, the server response would be addressed to dynamically assigned to the port. So dynamically it will be changing. When you have dynamically changing, it is based on the context. Based on the context, your search or your data is filtered. For example, if I have filtered, okay, if I have filtered, some terms, maybe it is very common, like drugs, which are banned, in India, the banned products. If you are trying to search in the Google, automatically Google, filters out. It will not give you a result. How it is doing? It is doing based on the context. Context is nothing but the content. Whatever you have, you are accessing based on the content. It has been, you are being blocked or you are being not allowed. In some college websites, okay, in some colleges, if you try to, search for drugs, try to search for some adultery, things. So they are blocked based on the context, based on the content that it is blocked. If you are trying to send a content which is not allowed, no, it will never. So that is having more artificial intelligence. Your AI is written there. Artificial intelligence is imbibed in your firewall. Firewall will detect. That is context based. That's why stateful firewalls are much stronger, much stronger than any other things. So they, because they are working on AI based context, filtering, and of course this processes the, of course, client server. If the data is very dynamic, so if it is changing, so stateless firewalls are not going to work. So you need stateful firewalls which keep tracks of the state of each connection. An incoming packet addressed dynamically assigned port, so allows only if the valid response, that is current state connection to that particular port, based on the context. Based on the context it works. So this is about stateless and stateful. Stateless protocol works on static information. Stateful will work on dynamic contents. It works on dynamic contents. So that you have to understand. Further, so what are the strengths of firewall? What are the strengths of firewall? So the strengths of firewall are, you can see, so they are helping to enforce security and safety policies in the organization. Second, they restrict the access to specific services and access to granted selectively based on the authorized authenticated functionality, and their singularity of purpose is to mean that company needs to make any compromises in terms of security. And of course, you can certainly say it is appraisal capacity results in organizations getting to know and monitor all the traffic that is coming in and going out. If you want to know how many people are sending data, what data they are sending, what data they are receiving, so that is what you call it as a strengths. That is what you call it as strengths. And further, being a notification system which can alert people concerned about specific events. Because if somebody is transmitting the data which is not legal data, so then immediately it has to notify. So all these things firewall can do. There are some things firewall that cannot be done. So that is weakness. We call it as weakness. An inability to fend off attacks from within the system. If somebody, you are in trusted zone, you are in trusted network. Being in trusted network, being inside the organization, if you try to hack your firewall, no, it cannot. It cannot. That is its weakness. If you are in trusted network, you can do whatever you want. This could take the form of people granting authorization, unauthorized access to others within the network, or social engineering assaults. These are some of the examples. It can only stop intrusion from the outside, but inside, it is not possible. And it cannot circumvent poorly structured security policies or bad administrative practices. Of course, if you don't write strong rules to the firewalls, no, firewall cannot work. So the rules are very important, and as long as the communication or the transaction happens has been permitted, a firewall has no ability to protect system against it. For instance, a firewall has been built to to allow emails to come through and cannot detect the viruses that are coming through this emails. So if you say firewall, you allow all the emails. But if somebody sends a virus through email, your firewall cannot detect. That's the weakness. So in the examination, they ask about how firewall, what is firewall, what is a stateless, stateful firewall, how firewall works, and what are the strengths of firewall, what are the weaknesses of firewall. So many times in the examination they have asked. So in the next class, we'll be discussing about application layer protocols. I need another 3 more classes to complete module 5. Later we'll see if you want any specific topic, we'll discuss again on that. That's all for today's class. The entire class recording is available in this particular website, and also the study material also available in this particular website. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.